on the road.
Hi, this is Eric Durek, and welcome to this edition of Med Health Fit, the TV show that integrates wellness and healthcare. And tonight, I have a fascinating guest, Dr. Ciel from 9Q Company here in Santa Barbara. And you work in healthcare, but you work in a very interesting part of healthcare, which is the leadership aspect and how to make companies work better. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
Well, I've been on your website a few times, and for those people like me who have an interest in what you're doing, it's this big picture thing that I sort of see for myself. I think that you are doing outstanding work. You are such a unique company in town, and I've known a lot of good companies, and we spoke before we went on air about some really good people in town that I've known who are doing some good things in leadership. But you have this very unique niche in 9Q, and I want you sort of to define a little bit about what kind of message do you deliver to companies that whether they're healthcare or just business. What sort of message do you want to deliver?
It really doesn't matter the industry. And what I would say, big picture, what we're about is the world is changing, the paradigm is changing, things can't stay the way that they are, and we are really about aligned leadership, thriving cultures, and all of that so that things are efficient and productive and fun.
Well, fun is very interesting because we spoke a little bit earlier. You know, I've worked in a number of different jobs in my career, and my first career I worked in a fast food restaurant, and we worked across the street from a county fair. So 10 days out of the year, we had to hustle.
Right.
We had to hustle. And every year we got less and less employees because everyone got better at their jobs and some of the folks stayed, and we got to be really, really good at what we did. We were one of the top groups, and it felt really good to work with a company. Even though it was just a fast food restaurant, it was my first job. You know, we did something really cool. And
as small or large, everyone knows that feeling. You know, that feeling of feeling in flow and feeling engaged and caring and working towards something, a big picture, working toward a goal that everyone is aligned with.
One of the things that I kind of noticed, and it might be my interpretation, but one of the things that I noticed about your company is it's kind of a no-nonsense type of thing. You're sort of the, I don't want to say meat and potatoes, but you kind of go to the heart of what you want to do with companies. So elaborate on that a little bit.
It's an interesting way to say that. I haven't heard it said like that before. I think what we do is there are a lot of classes and knowledge, and there are a lot of things, there are a lot of different things that people can, oh, let me learn this, oh, let me do this. I think what we do is we say, okay, take all the sparkly things away and let's go to the heart of it. What really matters and what's behind everything that we're doing.
You have workshops. You know, you're not just a consulting company, but you're also an education company.
Right.
And actually, that was one of the things that you right out of the gate when you formed your company. You said, what, after 5 weeks you did your first workshop?
Yeah, after 5 weeks, my co-founder and I, William Poet, after 5 weeks of meeting each other, we co-created and co-led. I mean, we got the people in the workshop as well. A workshop 5 weeks after we met,
which is impressive because I used to do workshops all the time. And
it takes some work.
You know what they say? You got to get butts on chairs.
Exactly.
But I think if you have a good story, if you have a good process, if you have a good outcome that you're wanting all your people to do, then they're going to want to be involved with that.
I would add to that as well. We've spent a lot of years doing this, and we have a very similar intention in what we want to bring to people, and so it was a very natural co-creation.
A lot of companies these days talk about emotional intelligence. You have a new phrase. Tell me what you told me before.
Emotional intelligence is important, but what we have looked at is we've coined the word energetic intelligence, or the phrase energetic intelligence. It's about the energy that you have before you go to do something. So emotional intelligence is about, am I self-aware? Do I know what's going on? Can I modulate what's happening with me? Do I understand what this other person or these other people are feeling? And can I shift and move so that we can do something productive together, which is very important. Energetic intelligence is, how are you showing up at the very beginning. So before you go into a meeting, before you go into a phone call, before you go into a difficult, challenging conversation, how are you getting yourself aligned, all aligned with what you believe, what you intend? Are the words and the actions and who you are all lining up? And that's energy. So the power for any of us is the more aligned we are, the more high we are in our energetic intelligence, the more we're going to feel good, and the more we're going to be able to affect change in whatever scenario.
Who would be a typical 9Q client? Do I have to be a Fortune 500 company? Do I have to have 500 employees? Do I have to have 45 years of experience? Could I be a startup company and just come to you and say, I need some ideas?
Actually, a startup company is a really great, all of the above. Startup company is really interesting because a lot of times there's this feeling of, I don't have time for that, right? That leadership stuff, that culture stuff, we'll deal with that later. We got to focus on this. The people I know who have made the intention to do this work, they set it up so that they don't have the same problems that you would have if you don't. So I love the startup idea. Not everyone has bought into it yet, but to be able to do this at the beginning, and the people I know who have, don't have, I mean, I don't want to say you can't get rid of all of the problems in a culture, and you can't make, the world's not perfect, right? But what are the things that we can do to help us as individuals and us as groups of people, whether we're a startup, whether we're a huge company, whether we're a small team, whether we're a large team, what can we do so that we're more aligned with the big picture, so that our daily actions are more productive, more efficient, which then frees up space and energy and time.
So when a company has, and I'll say a person in a leadership, it doesn't have to be the CEO, because a lot of times CEOs aren't there, they're off doing something. And I remember years ago when Tim Ferriss came out with his book, The 4-Hour Workweek, he got nothing but bashed on morning television. You can't work less than 60 hours a week if you have your own company. Are you crazy? And here's a guy that's, I'm assuming, making very good money while he's out, scuba diving in the Caicos and doing all these worldly things with a company that's still moving. And I think he got lucky because it was a tech guy. I don't know all of the things. But I love the concept because at my age right now, and you and I had a conversation about that, it's about time. Yeah. It's all about
and energy.
Time.
And energy.
And because you can only put so much energy into things, and I'm I have to do this with my daily things, but the whole aspect of is where do you put your priorities, and again that's and reading your website, that's exactly what you guys, you're a prioritization company.
Productivity and performance and prioritization. There's a study by McKinsey, a 10-year study, so it wasn't just a one-time thing, and they looked at executives, and they found that those who were in flow were 5 times more productive with their time. So when we talk to people and they're like, well, we don't know if we have time to do that training, or we don't know if we really have the time to invest in that. Think about what that means. Even whatever your role is, whatever your current position, whatever your current job is, if you could be 5 times more productive, it frees up a lot of time. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's hard research. So what we're after that, okay, what are the tools and processes that we can provide to allow people to do that?
And it's so important because, again, I'm going to go back to the Tim Ferriss thing for just a second. The guy who was the CEO of General Electric, I can never remember these guys' names, but he's a famous guy too. But he's much older, and back in the day, it was like, okay, how many hours can you put in? It's 60, 80, 100 hours a week. And I'm actually going to come back to my fast food days. My boss, Barry, was...
You still remember the name?
No, I love the man. He was my first boss. He was the general manager at 21 years of age of a restaurant that was one of the most productive restaurants in the state of Michigan because of this county fair thing. And he came down with cancer in his 20s. And because in high school, he would work 100 hours a week. And I think he worked himself to death. He died at 44 years of age, but he still, I have a picture of him in my scrapbook. I think of him when I go back to my hometown. He made such an impression on my work career. It was 40 years ago. It was the very first boss I ever had. And he was not like a boss at all. And I've had people way on the other end of the spectrum.
Right.
And now that I'm at this point in my life, I can look back and say, you know, guys like Barry. Guys
So
like
what
Barry.
was it? What was it about him?
He knew a lot about the restaurant business because he worked his way up for 5 or 6
Right.
years. He was not even a high school graduate when he got the job as a manager, but he knew how to deal with people. He loved
love
people.
what he did?
He loved, and nobody loves it. It's hamburgers, but he loved people.
But he
we
loved-
got done with cleanup one night at 2 in the morning, and he came in because he was doing the end of the month. He says, "Come on, you guys, I'm going to take you up to the truck stop, and we're going to have breakfast at 3 in the morning." And by God, that was so fun.
So he cared about
He
cared
cared
about his people.
everybody,
He loved his,
and that was and there are not that many people like him. Small town, Midwest,
Yeah.
whatever. But I think that there are so many issues right now in the American workplace. I mean, we touched a little
There are
bit
a
about
lot of them, yeah.
But the thing is part of it is that people look at productivity and production and just work harder.
Push harder, push
Yeah.
harder, push harder. And the truth is you're actually less productive that way.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and part of what we talk about the leadership paradox in that you have to allow yourself to be in the best state in order to be as productive, efficient as possible. So by only focusing on push the outside targets, right? You're actually doing a disservice. You need to take a pause and you need to make sure that you're in aligned energetic intelligence, make sure I'm aligned with my why, where I'm going, the vision, do I have the training, am I set up for this? And then go, it will take less energy and it will take less time. And the more fun. I mean, I add that, you know, our one of our core values in our company is play.
Yeah.
Because life is too short. I mean, I don't know about you, but I know at my point, at my age, not only in some of the work that I've done, but in my personal life, you could be here today and gone tomorrow. So if you're looking at each day as this, let me live this day to its fullest.
Yeah.
What can I do to really, truly do that?
Yeah, and I just think that a lot of people get caught up in the minutia and that whole thing about, you know, in America, a lot of it is I want to make more money. This is a money-driven culture, as opposed to I just really would love to do the best that I could, you know. And it's interesting. So I'm going to kind of get back on track here.
Get back on track.
And I love the fact that your company, I mean, you have, and I'll say it a few times tonight, you have a very unique company here in Santa Barbara, because I don't know if you guys go to work in Birkenstocks, but a lot of people here do. But you have this workshop, and you bring people to your workshops, and you actually certify them or their business as what?
So we have a series of certificate trainings, and the first one is the essentials. And at the end of that, you have a certificate that you have that basic level, that essential level in 9Q Leadership Essentials. So those are our basic habits and our basic process. You have a certain level when you get the certificate from that program. The next two go more specialized. So the second one is a little bit more, it's in flow. How are you using it in your organization? And it could be more of, the first one is a little bit more focused on the leader. Second one, a little bit more focused on the culture and how things are flowing in the culture. The third one is really a specialist level. So you get a certificate in each of those. If some people stop at the first one, you know, maybe they just want that essential level. A company can put through an entire team through the training. They can send one leader to test it out, which sometimes happens. Like, what is this? What are we really going to get from this? And we do that within organizations if they want us to come in and do it on a consulting basis. But we also have a very diverse class, which is made up of people in various industries and different levels in their industries.
Do you ever tell a company you're big enough, or this is your sweet spot? I won't use you're big or too small. Everyone wants to scale. I mean, this whole thing about scaling.
Right.
But I'm seeing a culture shift because of social media. And there's a guy on LinkedIn named Gary Vaynerchuk, and he's a New York-based tech guy, and he's a leadership guy with Birkenstocks, ratty t-shirts, and hat backwards. That's his MO. He's a really interesting guy. He sends me things on my phone, and I try to look on as many of them as I can. But he's like kind of this same, I don't think he's exactly like you, because he's very laid back. He's not, I think that you
But
guys,
there are some similar messages for sure.
and one of them is be happy with what you're doing, and don't, you have to, he's trying to get people to shift about colleges and universities. If you go to college, you'll make more money. That's what college is all about. Not anymore these days. Not anymore. You're going to get more debt these days. And so I think that he's trying to figure out the landscape, as your company is, to try to get to people where, I mean, you have to make a certain amount of money, because you can't be a poor, starving artist and then be out on the streets. But do you help people with, if you can do this and this as opposed to that, you might get to hear quicker?
Yeah, so I would say it's not just about money, and we don't go in and tell a company what to do or not do. That's how we're different from some business consultants. We go in and we help them to develop these habits and this process so that they can determine very clearly what their next step is. So it's going to be different. We're all individuals, we're all very different, just like, and the organizations are all different sizes, different makeup, different intentions, visions, where they're going. So it's, what we provide is we provide a way to get clarity around, this is what really matters to us, and this is what we're going toward. Now, part of that is being present and focused, right? So it's not so much looking at, we got to get here, we got to get here. It's yes, this is a vision of where we're going, but part of our process is you do a review process and you check in what's working, what isn't working, what needs to change. And so you see, ooh, you know what? This is working really great. Love the direction we're going here. You know what? This hasn't been working. What do we need to shift and change to make that better for us, which is going to be different for each organization. And that's where the decision points are. They're not just random, they're not based on someone else coming in and saying, oh, you should do this, oh, everyone else is doing this, so you should do this. It's more, that's where the energetic intelligence is, do I know who I am as a leader? Do we know who we are as an organization? Are we clear about do we really live our values? Do we really live our vision and our mission? And if we are, how do we get there as efficiently as possible? And that's going to be different for each organization.
Do you see the younger generation embracing this kind of stuff?
We have some millennials in our class right now, and they are loving this, because there's something about it that resonates with, so the way that I think of it, and this is my view, right? This is not based on research, but this is my view. The millennials are pushing all of our organizations to question how we're showing up as people, as leaders, how we are moving in the world. Why do you think we're suddenly looking at being more socially conscious as organizations? I think that they are pushing up. I know many leaders in their 50s and 60s saying, the millennials on my team don't want my job. They see how miserable I am. They see how hard I work, and they're saying, no, thank you. I'm going to do this. So things are shifting in a way, and they're part of it. I won't say that that's all of it. So I think what the ones who are working with us, what they're realizing is, wow, there's a methodology, there's a process to this that can change, not only for me, but for everyone, right? And that's exciting, because they're not doing it alone.
Well, I mean, I've got two kids, and they're both adults now. And I was not the smartest kid academically in high school, but I went through graduate school and had a teaching fellowship at a major university, and so I figured I wasn't too bad. But I look at sort of the collective consciousness of these kids, like when they had that shooting in Orlando, and one of those kids got up and he started, and now he's on TV. I would have never done that in high school. A lot of kids would have just said their prayers and gone about their life.
They are not willing to live in the world that we've created. And you know, I think it's amazing. I know I talk to a lot of people and it scares them. I think it's amazing because you know what? The world isn't working right now. And I never say it's going to be perfect. We're going to reach some end point where we're all, blissed out. I'm not saying that. But there are a lot of things that haven't changed in many, many years. And they're in their own way, which is not always pleasant, in their own way saying, it can't be like this anymore.
Well, and I look at healthcare because I've had a number of people in that very chair. We've talked about health insurance and healthcare. We've talked about chiropractics versus the AMA. We've talked about pharmaceutical companies and what they're doing to the planet, to companies, et cetera, et cetera. And I know that there has to be a shift, but I know in my mind that there are relatively simple solutions to most of these problems if you can get things like money and power and greed and selfishness, put them out of the way and say, yeah, that's not that hard to solve. I just think that we're going to have to get greed and selfishness and some of these things to not be the most important as opposed to...
So I would say that in our leadership training, it's I would say the most challenging thing for people is the recognition that in our training, we're helping you to recognize that everything starts here. So no matter who you are, no matter what your position, no matter what you're doing, it doesn't matter. We've got to stop pointing the finger outside of ourselves and saying it's his fault, her fault, their fault. And we need to say, because that's a very unempowering position. You can't make change from that place. But if you say, okay, given this, given what's going on around me that I don't have control over, let me connect back in here, be aligned, that's the energetic intelligence, and what can I do right now, today, to make things a little bit better? You get more people doing that, the world will change.
Mm-hmm. And I completely agree with that. A couple more questions from the thing here. You have leadership training, and you said that you have 3 levels of it. But also on your website, and we spoke about this before we went on air, that you have this 9Q facilitator, and that is like the highest level. What's
and that's the newest, because there's a recognition that my co-founder and I, my president and I, we can't do everything ourselves. Mm-hmm. Some of this work it's necessary to be in. It's necessary for us to be there physically. Some of it can be done virtually, but the power really is some face-to-face time. So the facilitator trains, you have to go through all the other levels of the training before, because you have to have an understanding and you have to actually be implementing the process and the habits regularly in whatever your work situation is. And then if you think, wow, I would really love to be training people in this, that's what the facilitator training is for. And that can be a company saying, ooh, we want to train someone and have them stay in-house with us, or it could be someone training to be an extension of what we are already doing, because we can't serve everyone. And our intention is to bring this as much to as many people and organizations that really want to make a change, to bring this there.
Right, and is your company is a national/international? How much traveling do you have to do?
Currently, well, we actually have some clients that have been outside the United States, but the bulk of it's national. The goal is to be global. The intention, I would love for this to be worldwide. So it doesn't, the virtual stuff, it doesn't, it's we're in a virtual world right now. It's wonderful. There's so many great opportunities that way. Sometimes you have to deal with time differences, which not everyone, not my people in Europe don't always love the training times that we've picked. Right. But we don't physically travel for very far, very frequently at this time.
Well, I would think that with so many businesses in San Francisco, Phoenix, and Los Angeles, and San Diego, you've got millions of people that I think, and again, you sort of exemplify, in my mind, these boutique companies that are kind of sprouting up in places like Southern California that have this national or international scope. But it's just a few people. You don't have to have this 1,000-person.
No, our intention is to be lean and agile. One of the things that is really important that we talk to our clients about, and is important for anyone to know, the world, we think it's changing a lot right now. The futurists look at how much more chaotic, how much more ambiguous, how much more uncertain it's going to be in the future. It's rapidly changing. So it's no longer a matter of I got to learn this particular skill and apply it. Well, I think I've heard that the children who are in elementary school right now, by the time they're 25, 65% of the current jobs will not exist. Asking them, what do you want to do when you grow up? They don't know yet. It's changing so quickly that, so the key is not so much to look out and attach to a certain outcome. The key is to be, how do I get clarity around where I am right now? It's almost like if there's a rocking boat, how do I get my stance so that I feel stable even though the boat is rocking?
Yeah.
And then from that place I can determine whether or not I can move here, I need to do this, need to do that. And so that's really the core of what we're doing.
No, and it makes sense to me. I don't know, maybe I kind of think that way. And like I say, we both know that money is important, but I think that if it's not absolutely the drive, you're essentially, from what I'm hearing from you, and I will try to paraphrase as best I can, is, perfect oneself. And once you can...
I hesitate with the word perfect,
but you're always striving for it. This
yeah.
existential thing is, I want to get better tomorrow, even though I'm 75. And I have a close friend of mine. He's 81. He started 50 businesses in his career. And at one time, he had one of the, I think, top direct mail companies in the United States, if not the world. And he's made really good money or whatever. But I got to tell you, outside of the fact that politics we don't agree so much on, but just to have a conversation with this guy it's an amazing process, and it's just...
And why is that?
Because
his passion?
He's engaged at 81 years old. He still has reunions, not with his high school kids, but with his junior high school class, and they're all in their 80s. They're all 81.
That's amazing.
And there's 7 or 8 of them left in New York City. He lives part-time there, and they get together every summer. Who gets together with kids who went to junior? So he has intention. He's had pretty good clarity in his. He hasn't made too many mistakes in his career professionally.
But if he did, he learned from them.
I think he did. Yeah, I think he did, and he learned how to handle people in terms of what's best for his business. But also, he has really extended himself to a lot of people. And again, the reason I've been friends with him for 30 years, even though he's old enough to be my father, is that we connect on a number of different areas, and the things we don't pretty much agree, we leave those aside. So here we are coming to the end of the show, which seemed like it was 2 minutes. All of your contact information is, but give me your address and your website and your phone number.
It's 9Q, NINEQCO.com.
And phone number?
Actually, best way to reach me is to email.
All right.
Dr. Laura at 9QCO.com.
Dr. Laura Ciel from 9Q Company. What a fascinating conversation. I'm glad I had you on the show. I love this stuff. So for Med Health Fit, this is Eric Durack, and thank you for watching, and thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.